We're gonna move to recording. Perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. Today we have a pleasure to welcome Darren and Justin. Both of them, they're in the talent acquisition industry, and both of them, they have very interesting path how they end up in the talent acquisition. They're gonna share this with us. They also gonna answer questions that you guys have for them, and also give you some feedback and advice how to find yourself in this new era of finding a job. So Darren, do you want to take it first?
Yeah, absolutely. So good morning, I guess, or afternoon if you're in Georgia. Really honored to be here. My name is Darren Skinner. I've been in talent acquisition for about 9 years total. Started out my career in sales after college, and job market was absolutely terrible in 2010. So there was really nothing hiring, and I got a degree in marketing thinking that was going to be everywhere. It'd be really easy to find a job, right? It didn't have that guidance. And so I scrounged around for a little bit and trying to figure it out, trying to make ends meet. I had a few different jobs. And it finally got to a place where I ended up at Massage Envy as a clinic manager. Things were going really well there, but I was being vastly underpaid. And I decided to take a leap. I put some things in line for our owners and our managers, and just hoping that I'd be able to get a small raise and some health benefits. And when that was denied, I could have stayed there and just kind of pitter-pattered around, but I decided to take a leap and figure out what that next step in my career was. And it was about 6 weeks. I was looking for a job, trying to figure it out. I ended up at a really swanky networking event. I was out of place. I was in a polo and some slacks, and everyone else is in like three-piece suits, and there are guys with bow ties, and people are smoking cigars. It was just a really swanky event, and I felt out of place. But I didn't want to be rude. I didn't want to leave, so I parked next to the refreshments and pulled out my phone. I was looking at basketball scores, and this guy sits down next to me. We end up in a really heated basketball debate, a LeBron and Kobe debate. And I'm making a really good point, and the guy stands up, cuts me off, and addresses the room and says, I just want to thank everyone for coming out. My name is Ron Wolf. I'm the CEO of Blue Wolf and Mondo. So, in going to this event and feeling out of place and wanting to leave, I decided to stick around, and I end up in a heated basketball debate with the CEO of the company I'm interviewing for. So just a crazy whirlwind of events. But, again, in getting out there and kind of understanding that I needed to make a change in my life, I needed to make a change in my career to be at the place that I wanted to be. And I was literally applying to any and everything and trying to figure out what that next industry was. And I got a good opportunity to see a lot of different things to figure out exactly what that next step was. And fortunately, I fell into it. And so, that was about 8 years ago now. It's been a fantastic journey. I've, recruited for just about every government agency you can think of, from CBP to DHS, DIA. I've done some work with the CIA, done overseas and O'Connor's project. So, pretty much everything that you can think of under the sun for tech government hiring in general. So a really solid resource in that space. And, from there, I support an organization called Objective Paradigm right now. Just recently was brought on with them as an RPO. So there's another company, Flume Health, that is more of a modern healthcare administration platform that I support as well. So, there's a lot of different things going on. But again, I'd say the biggest step in my career was understanding that a change needed to be made, understanding and really trying to figure out what that next step was, being able to, experiment a little bit and figuring it out. And once I was able to identify it, fading into it fully, and understanding that that's what I wanted to do. So that would definitely be kind of my advice and a little bit of my background.
Thank you, Darren, for sharing. Justin?
Yeah, so I'm Justin Broussard. Again, honored to be here. Love being able to talk to students, and I do it pretty often with my alma mater in Texas, Southwestern University. Really small school, but ended up playing D3 college football there. So still giving back, and platforms like this, love to be able to engage people who are looking to get into the workforce. I've been in talent acquisition for about 5.5 years now. So I graduated from Southwestern in 2017. And at that point in time, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I majored in kinesiology, and I was thinking I'd go to chiropractic school or physical therapy school. But I didn't want to take on any additional loans, and sort of just wanted to get life going. So I had a friend. I ended up selling him a gym membership because I was working at a gym at the time after I had just quit my job from Dillard's. This is my senior year. So I'll go from Dillard's to a gym, and I'm just working because I know if I don't have a job, then my parents they're gonna tell me to come home after I graduate. Like going home is not an option. So doing whatever I can. I sold my friend a gym membership, and he was working for a staffing agency called Tech Systems. And he said, "Hey, like I work at Tech Systems. I think you'd be really good at this. Like you obviously are on the phone and your like current job, you like have to be fearless, like selling people gym memberships. So you should check this out." He did a terrible job of selling me his company. I didn't want to do it. I honestly only took the interview because he was my friend and I didn't want him to like tarnish his reputation. So ended up taking the interview, and when I went in, it was an environment where I could see myself being challenged and, you know, sort of taking that next step, not going back to school, like making money. And this was a career path option. So I went to Tech Systems and I recruited for about 8 months. And then I transitioned into sales. So I sold information, infrastructure, technology services for about 3 years. And I got to work with some really cool companies like Kendra Scott, Yeti, Home Depot, Apple. Like I know Home Depot has a huge presence out in Georgia. But after I was at Tech Systems for about 3.5 years, I knew it was time to sort of similar to Darren. Like I knew it was time to make a change. I like the way he put it, vastly underpaid. I felt like I was vastly underpaid and underpaid and overutilized. Like they had me doing everything, but they were only paying me a little bit, which that didn't really add up. So I started to look into my network, and I reached out to everyone who was in my network who had worked at my company in the past, who was now at a big technology company. So either Facebook, Apple, Google, or VMware. And someone that I knew from VMware, we got on the phone, they were open to chat, told me that they may have something in the future, which everybody always tells you they may have something, but she actually ended up reaching out to me like 6 months later and said, "Hey, are you still looking?" Which the timing was very serendipitous because I had just gotten denied from a job application process. So it was like the day after I got denied, I was down, and then I got this call from VMware, and the person who actually hired me was an alma mater from my university. So it was just a lot of intersection, a lot of connections, and just using my network. But it worked out, and I've been at VMware. I support our network and security business for sales and pre-sales, and it's an amazing company. $11 billion in revenue a year, 30,000 employees. So it's exactly where I want it to be, and glad to be here today to talk to you guys.
Thank you, Justin. And this is going to be a great segue to actually, you said you were underpaid, overutilized. So how those students can find a job that actually define their task and duties in a way that they're going to do what they're supposed to do, so they don't find themselves underpaid and overutilized.
Darren, would you like to take this one first?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is something I like to talk about a lot when I get on panels or just speaking to younger individuals as well. Is that I think that it's really easy just to say, "Oh, I want to find a job," and then to apply to a bunch of things and find something. Like it's pretty easy. But in terms of finding that right job, what I've always called it is finding a good job, and it's an acronym, obviously. The G being, you need to find a job that provides you with gratitude. You need to have a job that has, or a company that has a very clear objective. You need to find a position that provides you with an opportunity for growth, and you need to find a company that shows diligence in your success. And so, with that being said, the G for gratitude, obviously a company that actually values their employees. There are a lot of places out here, obviously, that have these hiring needs, and there are all these things that they throw at you in terms of benefits and stock options, all this good stuff, but they really don't care about their employees. And it sucks to say, but it's very true. You'll have companies that will pitch you the world, but you get in and you see it's a very different situation. So as you go through the interview process, understand that you're interviewing that company just as much as they're interviewing you. They obviously, you applied, but they reached out to you. Not everybody get reached out to. So the fact that they saw your resume, they saw whatever you put forth and they wanted to speak to you, understand that there's interest. Make sure that it's mutual. Don't just try to find a job just because you need that next paycheck. I know that things can get sticky, but it will obviously be a much, much, much different situation if you just take the first job that comes about you. The second one is finding a position that, again, has a clear objective in what you're doing. So to speak in specifics, Objective Paradigm, the company that I work for, as I was looking for my next contract, was really a solid business model. It's a growing RPO, and being able to support an outside client is something that's very familiar to my background. So that was obviously something I really I appreciated and I understood. In terms of the client that I'm supporting, Flume Health, as an African American man, healthcare in general is really bad in America, but I think that for BIPOC and underrepresented areas, it can be a little bit more of a sketchy situation. So the fact that Flume Health is doing something that I agree with and I absolutely can get behind in creating a modern healthcare platform that typically operates more a la carte as opposed to just coming into a company and having 3 options to pick for your healthcare. You actually get to tailor a plan that's more so specifically tailored to you. Again, it was something that it was very easy for me to understand and to get behind, which I felt good about being able to take on that job. In terms of providing opportunity for growth, especially as you look at a job coming right out of college, nobody wants to just be seen as an underling. You don't want to be the bottom link on a totem pole. You want to have that opportunity to step up, to learn new things, to be able to contribute to the environment, to showcase your talent, to showcase your skills, and to be given the opportunity to have more responsibility, obviously more pay, more work-life balance, to have just a better situation for yourself. So finding the companies that have that upward mobility, that actually have a track plan for, if you do this within the first year, this is available. They have bonus structures. It's within 2 years, you could be promoted. Make sure you find a company that actually promotes from within and will give you the opportunity to do that. And the last letter in the acronym, D for diligence and your success, is just finding a company that actually agrees that you want to be more successful than you are now. Especially, again, as we're talking about younger professionals, I think that the end goal is always seen in mind, right? You want to come out and you want to immediately, like, if you want to be an executive, you want to wear a suit, be a boss, like you want that right out of college, and then understanding the journey. Like there are going to be companies, especially early in your career, that actually put forth the diligence in making sure that you're successful. They give you continuing education programs. They have, again, a good work-life balance to understand that if you feel fulfilled outside of work, you will absolutely contribute everything you have to the position that you're working in. Obviously, if you don't, there's things on your mind, you're constantly distracted, your work is going to fall short. So again, finding that company that actually provides you the resources and has that diligence in making sure you're successful is something that's extremely important.
Thank you, Darren. Justin?
Yeah. Coming out of school, you have all of these thoughts, and you have aspirations, right? Like you've been taking on projects, you've been in a classroom. So now things sort of become reality, and you have to go out and apply this to a setting that's not as structured as what a college curriculum looks like. It's a lot more open-ended. It's a lot more ambiguous. So to agree to Darren's point, I think the acronym is perfect to give you like a framework and a frame of reference for how you go out and you research these opportunities. But I would say to find something that aligns with like your values and something that aligns with really your morals and your ethics, and that ties directly into that like fulfillment piece, because you want to be fulfilled in the work. You want this to be something that's filling your cup when you go to work every day, because oftentimes I think that can be much more valuable than the compensation that a company pays you. Because coming out of school, like everybody has this idea that we're gonna make, like I want to make 6 figures and I want to do this and I want to do that, but there is a process, and oftentimes you have to start at a bottom level at the organization, so that way you can see how things work, you can learn, you can have mentorship, and you can look at your options and know which direction you want to go in. So if you do end up taking a job where you may not be paid, and as far as compensation, like there are things that outweigh compensation. So don't let that be your primary driver when you look at opportunities. Assess the whole thing, the work-life balance, like Darren said, opportunity, upward mobility, bonuses, and then look at the leadership, look at the type of people who you're going to be working for, because that's who's going to be advocating for you. If you get in the interview and you're interviewing with the person who's going to be your quote unquote boss or leader for the next year and a half, and you can just tell like this ain't it, then don't do it. Don't tread any further. That's a signal for you just to step away. So look for something that's fulfilling. Look for something that has, you know, the full picture and not just the money. And don't be afraid to take less money for more opportunity. Don't set yourself up for a bad long-term move just by taking the short-term paycheck. But that would be my 2 cents to what Darren said. But I love the analogy and the good. So
Thank you, Justin. Darren, do you want to add to this? Anything else?
No, I think that you know, he definitely lined up a couple of the points that I missed, especially as you talk about making sure that you understand the leadership behind that company. Again, you know, those are the people that are going to advocate for you. Those are the individuals that you're going to report to, the ones that you might have some visibility with. So, you know, you need to understand that if this person, especially their communication style, that's always the biggest thing. Well, one of the biggest things as well. You need to understand, you know, leadership's communication style. They don't always understand how to convey a message in the best format. So again, finding one that will be able to give you the tough information, that will be able to reprimand or, you know, provide guidance wherever it may be without sounding, you know, without sounding pushy or without sounding like they're belittling you or speaking to you condescendingly is absolutely important. So I 100% agree, Justin.
Thank you. So now let's talk about the scenario. So students are leaving the Georgia State and now they're looking for a job. What is their next step? Should they focus on their LinkedIn? Should they focus on their resume? Should they start networking? What advice would you give them?
I mean, personally, I'd say do it all. You know, I don't think that there's any downside in making sure that your resume, your LinkedIn is good, making sure that you're networking, you're trying to get out there and talk to people. I mean, it's the only way to really figure it out, right? Justin and I could sit here and talk for hours and hours and hours, but until you actually put it into practice and you start trying to do some of it yourself, you get out there and try to swim, then, you know, it's pretty easy to teach someone how to do this, right? But again, until you get in the water and you actually do it yourself, it's kind of hard to understand. So I'd say absolutely update your resume, especially as an early career individual. Like your resume is probably not going to be longer than a page anyway. Put as much information in there as you need. You know, put your hobbies. You know, like let people know exactly who you are and what you like to do. You'd be surprised. You know, I've personally had individuals apply for things like software engineer and they had a math background and we ended up in a data science position. So I mean, if you put the things in your background that you like, the things that you enjoy, the things that you're looking to get into, the opportunities obviously are boundless from that point, instead of pigeonholing yourself into thinking, this is the thing that I want to do. So I would absolutely suggest that you update all of those things. The very last point in this is I'd say, you know, especially in the last couple of years, how the pandemic has changed things, it's really easy to look for positions across the country now. You know, you're not just, again, pigeonholed to this Georgia where you have to go on site and you have to do this, you have to drive to this. Almost everything is done remotely these days. So really figuring out what you can do, figuring out if there's a space for that remotely, and then understanding that, you know, if your resume is tailored correctly, if your LinkedIn profile is tailored correctly, you can apply to a whole lot of things across the country and really be strongly considered just based on your background. So, you know, again, to wrap it all up, absolutely update all three of those, well, both of those, your resume and your LinkedIn. Try to register for networking events, even if it's not really something that you think that you might be able to do. You never know. Like there are going to be hundreds of people there. If you just start talking to people, the information itself is really going to push you along the path to fully understanding exactly what it is that you want to do and how to get to that place.
Thank you, Darren. Justin?
Yeah, I think networking, communication, conversations, like just curiosity, those are all the things that are going to lead to job opportunities, especially coming out of school. And Darren can probably attest to this, being behind the scenes of a recruiting process. Whenever we post a role, there's hundreds, thousands of applicants. So when you see that volume of people, because there's so many opportunities, so many people that are looking for work, it can put you at a disadvantage. So you have to figure out ways to give yourself an advantage through an interview process or through an application process. So my advice would be leverage your network as much as possible. And if you don't have a network, you actually do. If you're like, man, I don't know anyone, or, you know, my friends don't know anyone, my family doesn't know anyone, that's absolutely not true. If you get on LinkedIn and you start looking at people that may have gone to your university, so other alumni, or maybe you're a part of an organization like a fraternity or sorority, or maybe you play a sport. If there's anything that's extracurricular that's tied to you, there's someone that's willing to connect with you just because they have a shared common interest or a shared common experience. So really like latch onto that. And whenever you send people messages, never say, hey, I'm interested in work and I want an opportunity. Always ask them about their story, what they have to say, ask them about their journey, ask them about their experience, how they got to where they were. And you know, maybe put in something that you saw that you two are commonly connected on, or maybe you both went to this school, or maybe you both were part of this organization, or maybe both of you play football. Who knows what it is? But once you tie into that, that person they're going to want to talk about themselves. They're going to want to share their story with you. And when you have the conversations, that's what really opens up the door, when they can send a recruiter a message on your behalf, or send a hiring manager a message on your behalf. Or maybe they have a team and they're like, I absolutely love you. I know we need something a bit more entry level, but like, we're going to figure it out. So that's oftentimes what leads to the result that you're looking for, because there's so many people. So you can't always just like go knock on the front door and expect like somebody to open it up. You may have to like go around the back or like climb through a window. So just figuring out a way to differentiate yourself.
Yes, those are absolutely great points. 100% agree. 100% agree. I think that, you know, especially from a hiring standpoint, just like Justin said, you know, we do this all day. So if let's say I was out at a networking event and someone randomly walked up to me and said, hey, I heard you all are hiring, can you take my resume? Of course I do it. Like, I'm not going to be rude, but I can guarantee you I'll probably forget. Like, you know, we do this for 8, 9, 10 hours sometimes a day. To get out of that and be in a networking event, you want to be social and you want to talk to people about their journey and their experience. And then someone walks up and hands you a resume. Like, it's just going to get pushed to the back of my mind. Like, I'm off hours at this point. So just like Justin said, I think that, you know, and not even speaking about me, I mean, that's across the board. You know, you walk up in any type of those situations and you tell somebody like, I'm really impressed with this in your background. It relates to this in my background. How exactly would you give, you know, what advice would you give to me as I go throughout my career? How do I get to this place? Just like Justin said, they'll sit there and talk your ear off, because people in that position love talking about what they had to do to get to where they have been. Like, it takes a lot of sacrifice, it takes a lot of grind, and they'll be 100% willing to give you all of that information if you just ask for it, as opposed to walking up and saying, hey, I want a job. Like, everyone wants a job. Everyone wants a better job. We all want more money. We all want more work-life balance, right? I think if we could all hit the lottery and everybody could just do what they wanted to all day, we'd all be happy, right? But we got to work. You got to figure it out. So it's really just like Justin said, understanding you're not always just going to be able to knock on the front door and have someone really pleasantly open it up for you when you walk in. You know, you might have to sneak in behind somebody. You know, it's a little bit manipulative in the way that we're talking about actually going about the conversation, but that's something that you learn in life, is that there are opportunities to control the conversation and to understand what you need out of it and how to get that from that person, as opposed to just asking, which is not always the best practice. So again, to Justin's point, you get out there, you network, you talk to people, you talk to them about their journeys and their experiences, you siphon off what you can and you use it for your own background, and you make sure that, again, you put those teachings and those advice, those PowerPoints into play, and you make sure that you get to where you need to be.
Thank you, Darren.
Yeah.
So now let's say the students were able to get their interview. And they get to the interview, how do they negotiate their salary first? And the second, how do they learn about the culture of the organization just from the interview? How they can just pick on those small nuances and see if that's the right fit for them.
You want to start this one off, Justin?
Yeah, I can take this one. So you get in an interview and you want to negotiate, you have your number in mind. I think it all comes back to research and it comes back to data, right? Like, you live in a world where like data is an unlimited resource and information is an unlimited resource. So before you go in, I think that there's ample tools, whether it be Glassdoor or Forbes, like there's all these lists that have like compensation. LinkedIn even has compensation data. So you can actually look at what everyone else in the industry is making for that particular like position or that industry. There's all these insights that you get from that. So going in, I just say research on the front end, like be able to tap into the company. Like there will be some public information that's available so that you're well equipped with what the salary range is and where you fit within that. To the second piece of the question, knowing about like the company culture and how you get that through an interview process. One simple question that people always ask is like, what has kept you at the company for X amount of time, or like, why do you work there? How do you like it? And they're really simple questions, but when you ask it to someone, if they get excited and you hear like, you hear like some extra like passion and some energy coming out of their voice and the way that they project it, and they're saying all these good things, and they're almost like selling you on the company. Those are major takeaways that you can like take and see if they align with what you're looking for. Me personally, when I looked at big tech companies pay the best in the industry. Like Facebook, Google, Amazon, like they are monsters, and they own all of our data, and they have all this information. So I knew for me, like ethically, yes, like those companies could compensate me appropriately, but I felt like there was almost like there's like not a manipulation piece, but it just didn't really align with me because I know how much data that they have, and there's not always the most ethical practices with the way that some companies in those situations go about things. But VMware, on the other hand, I saw a company that was, they still had big tech. We still have like customer impact. We're in the cloud, like we lead the virtualization space. Like there are all these things, and the company is going towards having like a zero carbon footprint. We have one of the most diverse and inclusive workforces of any company, not only like in the tech space. And if you go to our company website, there is data and statistics on our representation. So how many underrepresented minorities are in leadership? How many underrepresented minorities are in sales? Like we're being very transparent with that. So to walk into a company that's open, honest, promotes, a remote workforce, just has like all of these ethical alignments with me personally, like that's how I found it, and that was just through research.
Thank you, Justin. Darren?
Yeah, those are great points. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with Justin. I would say from my standpoint, as we talk about salary in general, I always give this advice to women. Don't ever give the number that you have in your mind. Don't. It's just don't. Try to shoot 25 to 30K higher. The absolute worst that happens, if a job is offering 50K and you're perfectly fine with 50K, the worst thing that happens if you go in and you say, I'm looking for 85, is they say no, but we can maybe do 55 or 60, and you say, oh, okay, that's fine. But the situation that I feel like women get into a lot of times is, you know what the salary range is, and you go at it in a more logical standpoint, where you don't want to turn somebody off, and you think that if you give them a higher salary, they'll say, oh, we can't work with you, and they'll let you go. Like most, and again, I'm sure Justin would attest to this. I mean, I have no problem with telling you, no, we can't do that high, but we can do this. The last thing I'll ever say is, no, I don't think this is okay for you because you're looking for too high. Like, we're going to try to work it out. And that's literally the way that you have to go about it. And understanding that most positions that are put out, like as a recruiter, we'll cut like maybe 5K off of that just to give us a little bit of wiggle room in the end if we need to negotiate. Act like, let me try to figure this out, and you have an extra 5K little cushion that you can put on it. So again, most jobs that are posted, they give you a range that's going to fit very easily for the company, but they can go a little bit higher. So again, understand that you can go into it and ask for what you feel like you're worth, and put a few $10,000, $20,000 onto it. The worst that happens is they give you the range that you already know about, which you're perfectly fine with anyway. So always shoot for the stars. Don't. I think y'all might be a little bit too young for this reference, but don't get on Dr. Evil vibes. As they ask you how much you won, you talk about $1 million. Don't get crazy in the situation, right? But by the same token, understand that you absolutely deserve what you feel like you deserve, and go into the conversation with confidence and understanding that you can give them a little bit of a higher range, and let's see what they do with that. So that's always the information that the advice that I give on the salary side. In terms of, in terms of company culture, I think Justin touched on a vast majority of it. For myself, I mean, I like to ask just very basic questions like, why is this position open? Is it a backfill? Did somebody leave the company and you now have to hire somebody else? Is this a growing organization? What's the situation? If I ask the question, why is this position open? And they say, oh, we're just experiencing growth and we need another person. It gives me some very basic information about the company. You're obviously growing. You have a growth plan in place. You know how this person is going to contribute to the team. I feel like growing startups have more of a positive, creative thinking energy behind them. It's very collaborative in the environment. It's a high visibility. These are the type of companies that I like to work in. Now, if I ask a company exactly why is this position open and it's a backfill, it's a little bit of a red flag because it's like obviously somebody left the company and you need to figure out exactly why that is. So I'd ask something like, did the person leave for personal reasons or did they just get a better job? Like you can ask that question. It's not rude at all. And unless there's some type of legal action taking place behind somebody leaving, they'll be happy to tell you, oh yeah, the person just got a better job, or unfortunately we couldn't do this, or they had been here for 7 years and wanted to take a sabbatical. Yeah, they'll tell you. But from there, it's a little bit further questioning. If somebody left and you're now looking to backfill this position, did you not have any internal applicants? That's a big question for me because I like, again, companies that will promote from within, companies that are looking when a position gets open. You look within your own company, you look internally, and you try to figure out who can be placed on this team. And then you move from there. You never want it to be a situation where you just bring in random people into a company. You want to make sure that growth is fostered from within. So again, if it's like, there are no internal applicants, somebody just left the company for some unknown reason or whatever it may be, these are kind of red flags to me. There's obviously, I feel like there's high, or low retention. This doesn't seem like a company that looks to actually keep their employees. Somebody leaves, they're perfectly fine with just bringing someone else in. That's not really the type of vibe that I would personally like for my career. So, it's just asking those qualifying questions, which again, I think that especially early career professionals, you assume that you're on the hot seat. You have to answer all these questions. You have to convince this person that you're right. So you don't really come with any questions. Again, you are interviewing this company as much as they are interviewing you. Please go into it that way and make sure that you ask the questions that you need to feel as positively about this situation as you hope that they feel about you.
That's a great answer, Darren. Thank you. Okay. Now we're going to open for questions. If you have a question for Justin, Darren, please raise your hand. And for any reason you cannot speak, put your question in the chat. Okay, Samuel, I see you have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, going into interviews, and of course, you're able to kind of feel out company culture with those current questions that Justin was saying earlier. If you get into the job force and you're working for the company, has there ever been horror stories on your guys' end that we can learn from that you just didn't gel well with the culture and you had to find the next company? Just curious.
Yeah, man, that's a really good question. Not everybody is going to be everybody's cup of tea, right? It's just life, So like there are you'll never have the opportunity to meet everyone in a company in the interview phase. It just won't happen. You'll meet maybe 5, 6, 7 people at the absolute most, and you come into an organization that has 150 people. Like there are going to be some unexpected things. There are going to be some, kind of off the cuff type of situations that happen. And it's being able to navigate those soundly and an understanding that, you can only control your own reactions. Like you can't control the way that someone else talks. You can't control the way that they receive any piece of information that you give to them. So you have to ensure that you remain professional at all times and, you kind of play it from there. My personal situation, most recent one, the reason why I left DNS Filter, I really didn't want to. I enjoyed the company, but there were a lot of office politics. There's a lot of people that enjoy doing things their way. And as a talent acquisition consultant, I came in and saw some areas of improvement. And as I started to make those suggestions, people that weren't even on the hiring team were giving a lot of pushback. Like, I don't want to do that. We shouldn't have to do that. We've been successful. And, I obviously wanted to say, well, I mean, if you were as successful as you thought you were, I probably wouldn't be here, right? That's what I wanted to say. But an understanding that's not going to get the point across. It's just I was brought in as a consultant, and all I'm trying to do is consult. I'm not saying that you all have to do this. there are a lot of technologies that we can look at. I can give you some other options. We can weigh some things. You can go into it in more of that type of fashion and understanding, again, I chose DNS Filter. I wasn't desperate for a job. I chose to work here. So if you make that choice, try to be as forthcoming with information, as professional as possible, but and understanding that there are times where it doesn't gel, and that's perfectly fine. You don't need to feel like a failure. You don't need to feel like, oh, I couldn't make this work. As long as you do everything that you can, at the end of the day, you feel proud of the work that you put in on the day. You feel proud of the interactions you've had with both your coworkers and your managers. If it ends up not being a fit and you need to leave, then that's perfectly fine. Make that plan, find that exit strategy, and move on to the next thing. And you can only do that but so many times. You don't want to have a resume like mine. Even though I've been a contractor, I've supported 12 organizations over the last 10 years, and I have to answer that question a lot in interviews. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but early on in your career, you get into the vibe of, you get into a company and I'll spend 3 or 4 months here and let's see how it works, and then you move on. It's not really going to be a good look later on. So that's why we talk about really being able to interview a company as much as they are you, making sure that this is somewhere you actually want to work and not just a place to collect a paycheck. You tend to stay away from those issues if you go into it a little bit more on the interview. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you.
Good question, Samuel. Kevin, I've seen it that you had you raise your hand.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
So as someone who's currently going through like everything you talked about, I understand everything you said, so I appreciate like your I don't know, it's just like a certain reassurance, because I've seen like a lot, like people haven't been hired for months, it's taking a while, everyone has their own path and stuff. So it's just like great to hear it from like someone who's been there, because I'm experiencing it right now. So it's just like a certain reassurance that if I do work hard enough and gain those connections, I can like possibly get a good job still, and work hard. So it's really great to hear. Like I just honestly it's just a great reassurance for me.
Thank you, Kevin. Anybody else has a question? Don't be shy. This should be a discussion. Hamna, go ahead.
I have a question. They both went over all the important information, and I thought it was very helpful. They pinpointed all the strategies and all the things that we should be aware of. So that was great. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hamna. And Andrew, you just recently had your interview. Do you want to add anything to it or ask any questions regarding what was happening to you the 6 hours?
Yeah, sure. So I made it to the final round, by the way. I passed, so I've done 3 rounds of interviews. I'm on to the final round, which is in person. So that's really exciting. And I actually did have a question for you guys. When it gets into that final round, does it come down to more technical skill over personality? Like how can I leverage, myself in that final stage of the interview?
That is a great question. I think most organizations do it a little bit differently. So it's hard to say exactly what the process is. I can tell you from a personal standpoint, by the time we get you to the final round interview, it's just more so yours to lose. At that point, we might have maybe another 1 or 2 candidates that we're reviewing against you, but we've obviously felt really, really strongly about you. That's why you've been bumped forward twice already. So it's that third round tends to be a little bit more personality based. It tends to have more senior managers, executive personnel on that interview, just to go over, company strategy, make sure that the company values are translated to you, make sure you understand how you might be able to function within this team. And it's just getting a general sense for you. Do you communicate well? Do you have any comprehension issues? Are there any type of, I've been on interviews where people do weird things. There was a guy that was spinning in his office chair for the entire interview, but he was great in every interview before then. And it's like, that's the reason why they have in-person interviews. You want to see how people are around other people. Are you just do you communicate very naturally and you just let it flow? But as long as, I think if you've gotten through the third round interview, there's no reason to get super in your head and trying to figure out like, how do I differentiate? Just be yourself, and I think I don't know if you know exactly how many openings there are or what the situation is, but again, as you get the final round interviews, if we have 3 openings, I'm going to interview all 3 people. Like, we're not going to take that one at a time. So again, at this point, I think it's just remain yourself, continue to be professional, answer the questions as concisely and succinctly as possible. No reason to run on and give random information. I can do that at times too, but try to keep it as concise as possible. And I think it's kind of yours to lose at this point. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, Andrew, what if you don't mind us asking, what are you interviewing for?
So it's an IT analyst role, more of like it's a hybrid job supporting. I don't know if I should say the company or anything, but just supporting. It's a fast food restaurant. I'll say that much. So supporting them remotely.
Got it. And your interviews up to this point, have they all been like more technical? Have they been like scenario based? What types of questions have they asked you?
Oh my gosh, they've asked me. So I've had 3 different rounds of interviews with about 9 different people now. And they must have asked me about 100 questions, just random, tell me about a time you were doing this and this outcome happened, but you weren't expecting this. I mean, I was to the point where I was making some stuff up, just so I would have an answer because I didn't want to go blank,
Yeah, they drained you.
Yeah.
And that was 6 hours, correct? And
Yeah, it was a 6-hour interview, or literally an hour-long interview, hop out of one call into another one, out of one call into another one. I mean, yeah, it was crazy.
Wow. Yeah. For final steps, I think like Darren said, is case by case. You'll see some companies that are more so just like trying to do their like final evaluation, or they just like have to introduce you to someone who feels the need to be a part of the conversation, or they want to contribute to the process in some way. So they're like, hey, I'm giving you the courtesy to interview this person before we actually give the green light and say that we're going to bring them on board. That happens often. Sometimes in like final stages, I've seen where they'll give you like an exercise that they ask you to prepare for. So it'll either be like technical, or for sales, they may have you like do a demonstration, or they may have you build some type of presentation, but companies wanting to actually see what your work product looks like. So that's also common for the final step. But I think Darren like said it perfectly. If you make it to the final stage, it's yours to lose. Typically, if you're at the final step of a process, there aren't too many other people that you're competing with. We may have 2 or 3, maybe 4 maximum other people, but at that point, we've identified you as someone who is like highly competent, has the skills and abilities, and like likely already like gels really well with the culture. But it's just sort of making sure that last step has been checked. But yeah, that's typically how it goes.
Now one more question, because I always bring questions prepared to ask the interviewer, at the end. Of course, you want to have 2 or 3, but I'm all out of questions for them. I have asked every single question I could have possibly asked. I mean, I wrote them all down, had them all next to me. Is it okay if I just start repeating them? I mean, if they're different people, or is there some underground question that I should know about that I should maybe haven't thought about asking?
I think this is an opportunity to put that networking into place, right? If you know who's going to be on the interview with you, just look at their LinkedIn profile. And once it comes to a place where they say, we definitely want to ask you if there are any questions that you can answer, be transparent. Say, hey, I spent 6 hours asking everybody questions yesterday. You can say that and kind of laugh, make it a little bit of a joke, but then turn to the interviewer, and it's like, well, I guess the only question I have for you is I saw you went to, I don't know, just to make up a situation. Like I saw you went to North Carolina. How'd you feel about that NCAA loss, right? It's just to bring out something a little bit funnier. It takes the conversation away from the monotony that you've been enduring for the past couple of weeks, however long the interview process has been. Make it a little bit more conversational, because again, especially if we're talking about a stakeholder or an executive personnel, someone that's high up in the company, like you want that person to see you as literally a person, not just a candidate, not a name on a piece of paper or a name in an email or a name on a Google Calendar invite that they had to get into and ask this person questions. You suddenly become somebody that they can see themselves working with. Now you're talking about their background, and just like Justin said, they'll sit there and talk for the next 10, 15 minutes. And then after that, it's like, okay, well, do you all have any other questions for me? And everything is just at a very lax, ending point at that point. So that would be my suggestion. Don't try to dig into any further questions, because especially executive members, the managerial personnel that you talk to, they'll be able to tell, like, that's a really weird question. I wonder where you got that from. Why do you ask that? And now you just seem like a guy who's just kind of saying stuff because you want to have a question. You don't have to. And again, the fact that you spent 6 hours with individuals before, you don't have to ask anyone else any questions, at least not about the company. Just make it more conversational at that point. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, I would agree. Go the conversational route. Like, you can never be out of questions, because everybody's background is going to look different. Everyone's LinkedIn experiences. So there's always something that you can identify there. But I would likely deter away from the company unless during the actual interview, like, you're going back and forth and there's something that they said that may have piqued your interest, or something that you didn't think of before, something that you didn't know about. Maybe you can ask some more details around that. But otherwise, I probably just go with the personalized background questions as opposed to company stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Great questions.
Thank you, Andrew. Adeline, I see you have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, actually, Darren and Justin, I would like to thank, your comments. They're really insightful. And follow-up questions with Justin's almost hit it on the nail on the head. But I do have a questions like for an individual who was from different working background history, from education, from banking and healthcare, and now graduating from college. And what do you think is better approach of looking for a company in the line of IT? Is it to apply through talent acquisitions or direct to the with the company?
I'll start this one off.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think, first and foremost, just to ask some clarifying questions. So you said you have a background in, I know you said healthcare. Did you say finance as well? Banking, healthcare. Okay, so that's your background. What did you get a degree in?
Because I was being a teacher.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I'm doing a sideline business. So now I try to align myself because I want to look at my futures, because technology is the future.
Mhm.
Now, if I'm going to get an interest to look for a company where I can apply my skills in technology, what can you advise for me? Is it better to go through talent acquisitions or direct to the company?
I would say what I would suggest is to reach out to a talent acquisition firm, just to ask, because I think at this point, you kind of have 3 routes that you could go. You have a background in banking, education, and in healthcare, and you now have a degree in IT. I mean, there is, fintech, which is financial tech, or administrative and payroll, along those back ends, and really creating some of those different platforms and softwares. That's absolutely a career path that you could go down. Again, I work in healthcare right now, more of a healthcare administration platform, and we do hire a lot of engineers. If you're looking to stay in healthcare, which is something that would be a little bit more familiar for you, I think that is a path that you could take at this point. Or, as you talk about education, technical trainers are in every single company. People get brought on, you have to learn the systems, you got to learn how to manipulate this and work in this email and and there's always a technical trainer that's involved in the orientation process for that. So I think that would be the first piece of advice that I would give, is to reach out to a staffing firm and just to ask about some of the different positions that they think you might be able to fall into with this background and this education. Again, I think there are a couple of different routes that you could take. And in researching exactly what those positions are, what they do, maybe how much they make down the line, which companies are hiring for this, how big is that market, I think that you'll have a really clear standpoint of exactly what you can do. And again, the fact that you have a background before your education, which people typically do it the other way, right? You get your education, you get your degrees, you get all your certs, and then you're trying to find the experience. And that's where people fall off because every position requires 2 years of experience, right? But as you go into it, let's say you end up going down the educational route, you look at a technical trainer, they require 2 years of experience in a teaching capacity, as well as this type of degree. You already have both of those. So you're a leg up from any one individual that's coming out of school with maybe a technical training background and 6 months of an internship. So again, just to very clearly answer your question, I would say reach out to a few staffing firms, figure out exactly which path you think is going to be best for you. And from there, it'll be really easy to apply yourself. You'll have specifically from a recruiter, you'll know exactly what that industry is. You'll know how to move within that industry, how you might be able to contribute. You'll know some of the questions that might be asked of you and how you can answer them. And that process will be yours to control from that point.
Thank you, Darren.
It's awesome.
Justin, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, please.
Honestly, I think that was flawless. Like everything, yeah, like Darren, if I'm grading that's 100%. So no, I don't have any. I would
You
just
guys are in sync, huh?
Yeah, I would just be repeating what he said, and yeah. So all good.
Must be the Texas thing.
Yeah. On the same wave.
So we have last question. I know Hamna, you had your hands up.
Yeah, I was just gonna add something for Andrew. Like you said, be yourself, and just I think at that point they're just looking for personality. And if they spent 6 hours, I'm pretty sure they've invested a lot of money just to get from that all the way to the last round. So just be yourself, and you don't have to ask questions. As long as you can relate with them and ask them questions, I feel like that's your winning point.
Yeah. I mean, it's entry level, so they haven't really even asked me hardly any technical questions at all. Just kind of, what project experience do you have? Like, working with a team, communication, just all the soft skills. So that's kind of what I've just been doing, trying to smile and be somebody likable, I guess.
Thank you so much. So Justin or Darren, do you guys want to add, close up, any additional feedback for the students? Something that we haven't discussed?
I think that we've covered a lot of it on this call. You got to get out there and try it. I know it's as we've been saying, it's really easy to give you this information and just say you should do this, you should do this. Like, none of it is really going to make that much sense until you actually get out and you start applying it. Like, start applying to roles, start talking to people. It's people go viral all the time, right? With standing outside of some big corporation with 100 resumes and a sign that says hire me. Feel free to do that. I'm not saying that it'll work, but I guarantee you'll have a whole lot of interesting conversations that day. It's going to be a lot of people that say a lot of different things to you. So I absolutely think that you got to get out there and you got to try some things out. You can't be afraid to fail. You got to understand that failure is only, it's just a stepping stone to get to where you need to be. And one of my favorite quotes is, as you look at the mountain that you need to cross, right? You see the peaks, you see the thousands of feet that you need to get up. If you keep your head down and you step over one pebble at a time, every single day, you make that small incremental change towards your goals, you look back and realize you passed the mountain months ago. And that's really the place that I think, as a young professional, that's what you need to understand, is that you might trip, you might fall. It looks like a daunting task in front of you, but you got to keep your head down and continue forward towards the goal. I promise you, you'll make it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. The only thing I would add is just be open-minded through the process, right? Like you're gonna meet so many different people, have a lot of different conversations. Like you have to have this curiosity that comes with it, and I think that people will be drawn to that curiosity, and it'll help you as you go through the interview process, as you prep, as you think of examples, as you ask questions. Like that inquisitiveness will go such a long way. So I just say keep that with you as you talk to people, as you network, and that can be a great asset and a great tool for you to leverage.
Wonderful. Lots of words of wisdom. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. It's 2:00 on the dot. We're finished.
Thank you for having us.
So everyone, if you guys want to say thank you, please say thank you to Justin, Darren. I'll put some notes in the chat.
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Absolutely.
Thank
Good
you.
luck on all your interviews moving forward.
Yes.
Lots of
guys.
thank you in the chat, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you. So Darren, Justin, we appreciate you. Thank you. You guys can jump off from the call and I'm going to continue with the students.
Gotcha.
Sounds
Thanks, everyone.
good.
Thank you. We'll stay in touch. Appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye. Let me stop the recording.